Hey guys, welcome back to another Dragonheir Silent Gods video. Today we are on the test server and we're going to have a look at Season 2. Obviously this is releasing in a matter of days for servers who started on global release, so the things we're going to be showing here, there's not much time till we actually do get access to them in-game. But I do just want to say, with this being the test server, things may still change, so anything we do look at now, it may not be exactly the same as when it comes out in the live servers in a few days' time. So first of all, I just want to have a little look through the events that have gone live here, just to see what we're going to be getting most likely when the season starts. So as you can see here with the check-in calendar, we're no longer getting the Horus on day 3 for free. So we're getting a Heliolite dice, we're getting a legendary Master Scroll, and it looks like it's going to be the same 6 rotating daily login rewards. Obviously with the Drist event is not relevant, that won't be starting then. We've still got the 6-day event where we can restart, kind of rebuild our heroes, reset them back to level 1. We've got hard training events as we expected. A Goblin event, which is good timing, we don't need that. We'll have a look at that in a minute. And there's the rest. The only thing that I have noticed as well is we do have this, which is the new version of the Uteor event that we had in Season 1. So we'll be able to get shards for a legendary hero called Ardreth instead of Uteor. So we'll have a look at Ardreth in a minute. We're going to have a little breakdown of all of the heroes in just a second. So yeah, I mean, there's also this event as well at the start where we can also earn a Heliolite dice, and that will just be from kind of progressing through the game and playing the game as we normally would. So if we jump into the heroes that have come out in Season 2, there are a few. So if we go to my heroes here on the test server, I do have access to everything. So as we know, there are three new damage types coming into the game. So we've got Burn, we've got Ice Blast, I believe it's called. Yeah, Ice Blast, and we've got Thunderbolt, which if we find one here, there we go. So we've got 3 new types of damage. By the looks of it, Thunderbolt and Wild are going to, Burn are going to be primarily AoE based, while Ice Blast is kind of Ice's new single target powerhouse. So if we look through all of these heroes, see what's what. So starting off of the fire element, the first legendary we've got is Calf. So if we have a look at Calf, he's got his passive skill. So whenever he hits an enemy inflicted with burn, he deals an additional 30% attack and derivative fire damage to the enemy and surrounding enemies. His battle skill strikes an enemy 6 times, each dealing 30% attack, 200% enlightenment, with a 35% chance of inflicting 1 stack of burn on them for 10 seconds. 6 times is crazy for a battle skill. That's going to inflict so many burn debuffs. And his ultimate skill is bombards all enemies on the field 3 times, each dealing 200% attack with 1000% enlightenment, with a 60% chance of inflicting 2 stacks of burn for 10 seconds. So it sounds like he's going to be crazy for actually applying burns, so we'll have to see what some of the other heroes do in terms of utilizing the burns, but he looks like he could be a very fun option. Next up, we've got, I'm going to go for Durham first because the last one is the exclusive legendary, so I'll cover him last. So on the passive skill, whenever an enemy's burn is dispelled, triggered or expired, deals fire damage to enemies and the surrounding enemies. The enemy and the surrounding enemies. Battle skill locks onto 3 random enemies and fires missiles at them. Each missile deals 90% attack fire damage to enemies within range, with a 75% chance of inflicting 1 stack of burn on locked targets for 10 seconds. So as we can see here, that's going to be hitting very frequently. So it's only a 10-second recharge, so it's going to be consistently placing burn onto multiple enemies at all times. The ultimate skill bombs the target area, dealing fire damage to enemies within range 3 times while ignoring 15% of the defense of enemies under burn. Also grants attack up and crit damage up to all burn allies for 10 seconds. So once again, a very strong looking hero who could be very good in a burn team, as well as obviously boosting the damage of the rest of your team. So next up we've got Ashetius, and this is the new exclusive legendary for fire, so he's the new burn exclusive. So he's got a 30% attack aura in all battles, which is absolutely amazing. His passive skill, basic attacks deal additional fire damage to the enemies in 3 adjacent tiles in front of the hero, and when the basic attack deals damage to enemies under burn, increases the hero's ultimate energy by 5%. This is crazy because we'll be getting so much burn out, especially if this triggers from multiple enemies. If he's hitting everything in front of him, he could potentially be getting 15% ultimate energy every time he deals a basic attack, which is every 2 seconds without any attack speed at all. So this could be really fun because he's going to rotate through his ultimate skills incredibly quickly. So on his battle skill, he deals AoE damage, fire damage to enemies within range and has a chance of inflicting 1 stack of burn on them for 10 seconds. So it's just going to help him with applying some of his own burns. And on his ultimate skill, so he dispels all enemies burn and deals fire damage to them, then triggers blast on all the enemies, with each enemy as the blast center, so dealing fire damage to surrounding enemies for each stack of burn previously dispelled from the enemy. That blast damage is increased by 75%. So this is going to be a huge AoE hit, especially if, say, 5 targets have burn and each of them is then exploding and dealing damage to surrounding enemies. That's going to do massive damage. I can't wait to test that out. But that will be for a separate video. I will test out all of the new heroes. This is just obviously a little look through. So next up we've got Poison, and I believe there's 2 here. So we've got Malak. So, okay, this guy looks absolutely amazing. Yeah, he looks incredible. So on his aura, he's got 45% defense in Grand Gladiator Arena battles. Passive skill, when inflicted with control or ultimate down, gains 15% ultimate energy and heals the hero by 10% of his max HP. This can only occur every 2 seconds. Also, if the hero fails to resist control or ultimate down, there is an extra 40% chance to nullify those effects. That's incredibly strong for PvP. There's obviously so much control in the PvP meta that being able to reduce the chances of your tank being hit by it, and also obviously healing himself and gaining ultimate energy, that is an incredibly strong passive. Next up, we've got his battle skill, where he deals max HP damage to the enemy and heals himself by 12.5% of his max HP. Healing is doubled if the enemy is inflicted with a debuff. That is once again incredibly strong. Healing for a huge chunk, potentially obviously 12.5 normally, otherwise 25% of his max HP every 10 seconds is really strong. On his ultimate skill, he dispels all control from allies and grants them control immunity for 10 seconds. Meanwhile, deals max HP damage to enemies within range and inflicts attack penalty too. So I am almost certain that Malak is going to see a huge part in the arena, whether it be realistically speaking, he is probably going to be the new meta. There's so much control, like I said, in arena, and having a tank who places attack penalty, heals himself, keeps himself sustained, and blocks out all of that control for your whole team is just too good to be true. So keep an eye out for Malak. He will definitely be appearing in the arena. Next up, we've got Stegomuffin. So on the aura, we've got 30% attack in all battles, incredibly strong aura. When the hero deals damage to an enemy, there is a 25% chance of inflicting 1 debuff randomly selected from the following debuffs on them for 5 seconds. So we've got attack penalty 2, recharging speed penalty, healing prohibition, accuracy penalty, and buff prohibition. I mean, that's incredibly strong for a passive, because obviously he's going to be hitting pretty frequently. He's quite slow, 2.5% attack interval. But realistically, you're going to be hitting quite frequently and placing quite a lot of these debuffs anyway, though. On the battle skill, deals damage to the enemy with the highest attack, marking it for 6 seconds. During this time, the hero will shoot an additional arrow at them when launching a basic attack. That's good, so you'll be hitting, say, the tank and also the strongest damage dealer. Could be incredibly interesting, help you pick out the enemy nuker quickly. Summons a magic nexus that lasts for 8 seconds in the target area, dealing poison damage to enemies within range. While the magic nexus exists, enemies who die in it cannot be resurrected. That's a very cool way to counter some really annoying heroes like Mithrasia. She is so annoying, not just in the arena, but also in places like the Fae. So yeah, that will be cool to see that in action. Once again, that's one that I will test as soon as I get around to it. Right, so now if we move on to the new lightning heroes, and we've got the Thunderbolt damage type to look at. So first of all, we've got Nissa. So Nissa comes with a 45% attack aura in City of Trials. A passive skill at the start of combat releases a mechanical creature to follow the nearest enemy, keeping them inflicted with electrocuted. When the following target dies, the mechanical creature will reselect an enemy to follow. Battle skill deals 450% lightning damage to the enemy with a 75% chance of inflicting electrocuted on them for 8 seconds, then triggers Thunderbolt once if the enemy is electrocuted. So Thunderbolt triggers damage dealt by electrocuted once. As you can see, electrocuted invokes a chain lightning at the carrier's position every 4 seconds, dealing derivative damage to the carrier and up to 4 targets. So that's quite a nice battle skill. It's going to be triggering the Thunderbolt quite frequently. And lastly, Chain Lightning targets an enemy, instructing mechanical creatures to follow the target and initiate an electric field that centers around that target for 10 seconds. When an enemy is inflicted with electrocuted, mechanical creatures trigger Thunderbolt on them 2 times and deal 120% attack derivative lightning damage to all enemies within the electric field. That sounds awesome. I'm quite interested to see what these mechanical creatures look like. But Nissa looks like she could be good fun. So next up we have got this one. I'm going to leave that's the exclusive. So we'll go for Shine Naktan now. So on his aura, 60 enlightenment in all battles. That's a very good aura. Passive skill uses lightning to strike up to 2 random enemies inflicted with electrocuted every 4 seconds, dealing lightning damage with a chance of inflicting electrocuted on them for 8 seconds. So that's going to book up to a 80% chance to place electrocuted, which is really nice. Battle skill deals damage to up to 2 random enemies and has a 75% chance of inflicting electrocuted on them for 8 seconds. And lastly, grants 15% attack up to all Thunderbolt allies for 10 seconds. Then deals huge multiplier damage to enemies within range with a 75% chance of inflicting electrocuted. I am curious to see how hard this skill hits. 4,600% enlightenment is pretty high. So yeah, this one's definitely going to be fun to test, but overall places a lot of the electrocuted debuffs, so it's going to be really interesting to see Thunderbolt teams in action with some of these legendary heroes. So next up we've got the the Thunderbolt exclusive hero. So we've got Pakunse. On his aura, 45% attack in Grand Gladiator arena battles. His passive skill, when on the field, the hero gains 1 stack of Overwhelm with unlimited duration whenever electrocuted is triggered. This effect cannot be dispelled and is capped at 30 stacks. At the same time, the hero casts a lightning, dealing damage to the enemy with the lowest HP. The fewer enemies on the field, the higher the damage, up to 500% of the base damage. That's pretty strong. So obviously on single target fights like Vortex, you're going to be hitting for the maximum damage here at the start. So onto the battle skill, we've got deals damage to enemies within range with a 40% chance of inflicting electrocuted on them for 8 seconds, then triggers Thunderbolt once on them immediately. Okay. And the ultimate skill strikes all enemies twice, each triggering Thunderbolt once and dealing damage. For every stack of Overwhelm on the hero increases the damage of this skill by 3%. All stacks of Overwhelm on the hero will be cleared after the skill is cast. So if I'm not mistaken, so that stacks up to 50 times whenever. So if you've got a team that's triggering electrocuted frequently, and this goes up to 30 stacks, you're getting a huge damage boost on this ultimate skill. This is going to do so much damage, I think. I mean, he's got huge base attack as well. I'm really excited to try this one out. So, yeah, as I say, this is the new exclusive legendary for Thunderbolt, so he will have his own artifact, which I expect will make him even crazier. But I'm really excited to give him a test and see what kind of damage you can get with him. So next up we've got Radiance. So in Radiance we don't have a new damage type, but we do have 2 new supports. So if we start with Rose, so Rose's passive skill, whenever the hero has a buff, the enemy cannot resist debuffs inflicted by the hero. That's incredibly cool. The battle skill deals enlightenment damage to enemies within range with a 75% chance of inflicting recharging speed penalty for 5 seconds. Also gains enlightenment up by 20% for 5 seconds. I'm assuming that's 5 seconds, there's no time, it's just 5. And on the ultimate skill, cast the spell 4 times, each dealing enlightenment damage to a random enemy and the enemies around it with a 75% chance of inflicting attack penalty. This is really good. Radiance is a little bit limited on their options for attack penalty, and as is Ice, sorry. So having a legendary who's capable of doing this against the whole map is really strong for the elements. So I'm interested to see, obviously I don't know what else has been added, but this could be a really important hero for Ice and Radiant teams going forward. So meanwhile, heals allies surrounding the random enemy by 4% of their max HP and enlightenment boost with a 100% chance of dispelling 1 debuff from them. That's really cool. So it does say it heals allies surrounding the random enemy, so I'm not sure kind of how close your team will have to be to that enemy to actually gain benefit from this. But the hero casts the spell 1 extra time for every 100 enlightenment they have, up to 6 times with each cast of the skill. So if you manage to get 600 enlightenment, it will repeat this ability 6 times. That's crazy. I'm definitely going to play with that because 600 enlightenment is a lot to reach, but you can still get a very good amount, like at least kind of 400 once you start getting to legendary gear. So I'm curious to see how that works, but obviously we'll test that out in another video. Next up, we've got Phaser. So on the aura, we've got 50 accuracy in all battles. So it's very nice and helpful. The passive skill increases the success rate for all allies to grant any buffs or inflict any debuffs by 20%, and increases the decreases the success rate for all enemies to grant any buffs or inflict any debuffs by 20%. This will not expire when the hero dies. That is really cool. That's going to be annoying in arena. But just really different. It's something we don't have currently in the game. It's a new mechanic. So yeah, I'm curious to see that in action. Could be very good for, obviously with it being a Radiance, it could be very helpful for rally teams, just to kind of create enablers out of heroes who wouldn't necessarily be considered reliable enablers for rally buffs. Next up, we've got the battle skill grants damage reduction and damage delay for all allies for 5 seconds. The damage delay is 40% of the damage taken is deducted gradually over 5 seconds instead. That's really cool. And obviously everyone takes 30% less damage during this as well. That is an amazing battle skill. It's such a low cooldown as well. That is really cool. And it covers the whole map, so it doesn't matter where you're positioned. Right, what does the ultimate do? So it deals radiant damage to all enemies and has a 50% chance of inflicting blind and recharging speed penalty on them for 10 seconds. Then grants debuff immunity to all allies for 10 seconds. This hero is awesome. There's so much buff and debuff control in this kit. Obviously, as well as that, we've got some crowd control with the blind. But the buff manipulation, and obviously, as well as that, the new damage delay mechanic. This hero is really cool. I'm excited to try that one out. So next up we have got Ice. So we're going to be able to check out the next new damage type. So that one I'm going to leave for last, Beldel. That's the new exclusive. So if we look at Zorak first, he looks awesome. A bit like Rash, but icy. So on his passive skill, whenever an ally casts a spell that consumes ice crystal, the hero fires an icicle at the current target, dealing derivative damage with a 35% chance of gaining 1 stack of ice crystal. Interesting. So if you're consuming a lot of ice crystals, this could potentially hit very frequently. This could be really interesting for Vortex. I'm kind of thinking like Ice Flora. I'm going to try that out later on today. That could be really fun. On the battle skill, fires an icicle at an enemy dealing damage, so scaling from enlightenment as well. Consumes all the hero's ice crystals. Every stack of ice crystal consumed launches an additional icicle, dealing more enlightenment and attack damage. And so, just to kind of talk about it a little bit, the new Ice Blast heroes, they are all about their battle skill. Their carrier's battle skill will gain an additional effect. Ice crystals stack up to 5 times. So there'll be ways of acquiring these ice crystals, which will then boost their battle skill. So they really revolve around rotating through their battle skill as often as possible. As for the ultimate skill, grants 40% damage up to all ice allies for 10 seconds with a 100% chance of granting them 1 stack of ice crystal. Meanwhile, all Ice Blast allies gain the effect of his passive skill for 15 seconds. Okay, yeah, so as I said, this looks like it could be crazy for single target fights. It's definitely one that's going to need testing, but I want to get this hero based on reading this. Granting 40% damage to all of your Ice Blast allies for 10 seconds alone is crazy, but then also triggering derivative damage every time they attack for 15 seconds, it's a lot. So next up we have got Shinna, one of the new mermaid faction. So the aura 45% attack in City of Trials battles. The passive skill, if the hero has Ice Crystal after casting a battle skill, casts it again by consuming 1 stack of Ice Crystal. When granting Ice Crystal to all Ice Blast allies, the hero will additionally grant 1.5% attack up. That lasts for 10 seconds to all Ice Blast allies up to 10 times. So we're just getting a constant attack boost as well from this hero. So the important thing, her battle skill, generate a frost bomb after a brief channeling, dealing 90% cold damage to the enemy. Generates an extra frost bomb for each stack of ice crystal the hero has. Each time a frost bomb hits the target, there is a 50% chance of granting 1 stack of ice crystal to an Ice Blast ally. So this could be really good. I think the biggest thing about this hero so far is the amount of ice crystals she's giving to other heroes. Obviously, having a chance on the battle skill. We've seen the passive skill here with a chance to, well, it's boosting attack based on providing ice crystals to allies. The damage from this could be quite strong though. I'll try that out. So on the ultimate skill, continuously cast a spell for 6 seconds. During this period, strikes a random enemy every 0.5 seconds, each time dealing cold damage, with a 50% chance of granting 1 stack of ice crystal to all Ice Blast allies. So yeah, I feel like Shinna is more kind of the enabler of the Ice Blast team. She's providing your team with a lot of Ice Blast stacks to obviously enable them to do more and more damage. At the same time, obviously, she could grant them to herself during that, in which case she will do more damage. But we'll try that out. So lastly, we've got the exclusive new new Ice Legendary. So on the aura, we've got 30% more crit damage in all battles. A passive skill that if the hero has ice crystals after casting a battle skill, consumes 1 stack of ice crystal to cast the skill again. Damage dealt from the current skill will be increased by 25% upon triggering this effect, up to 100% of the base damage. If the skill isn't triggered again within 3.5 seconds, the accumulated damage bonus is emptied. On the ultimate battle skill, we've got deals cold damage to the enemy while ignoring their shield. Then the hero gains crit damage up for 5 seconds. So a nice boost to their crit damage by 30%. Finally, on the ultimate skill, strikes an enemy 3 times, each dealing cold damage with a 50% chance of gaining 1 stack of ice crystal. So, I mean, this being an exclusive legendary, the kit is relatively basic. There's not really loads of crazy extra things going on, but by the looks of it, there's going to be a lot of damage going on. So once again, I'll be testing these all out later and then putting out some videos on these heroes and kind of the new damage types whenever I get the chance to get that out. So now for Necrosis, we've got 2 more to look at. Just to come back to Radiance as well. Sorry, I did miss out on Ardreth, who is the new Uteor of Season 2. So this will be in the second month of the season, we'll be earning resources towards getting Ardreth. So first of all, on the aura, we got defense by 30% in all battles. The passive skill, after the battle starts, the hero gains 1 stack of blessing every 5 seconds. This buff is permanent and cannot be dispelled, up to 10 stacks. So when the hero's blessing reaches 10 stacks, it grants 10 stacks of blessing to all allies. Every stack increases defense by 3% and resistance by 10. So that's effectively giving your whole team 30% defense and 100 resistance. That seems a lot, but awesome, considering this hero is effectively a free hero for us. We can earn this through the second month. It's the only way to get it this season. That's a really cool skill to have. On the battle skill, heals the ally with the lowest percentage of HP by their defense, grants defense up 2 to them for 5 seconds. When the skill is cast on a target below 50% HP, healing will be increased by 30% and reduces the recharge for the next target's next battle skill by 50%. This could be really cool if you're using it in an Ice Blast team and that 30% or 50% reduction on the battle skill manages to go on your Ice Blast damage dealer. Obviously, as we know, they are all about their battle skill, so rotating through that as quickly as possible is always going to be interesting. And on the ultimate skill, enhances the hero for 10 seconds, increasing all allies' healing received by 50% in the duration, and increases the hero's basic attack, dealing radiant damage each time. When enhanced, each of the hero's basic attacks grants the ally with the lowest HP with 180% defense healing and has a 100% chance of dispelling 1 debuff from them. So effectively, we've got a healer. Do you know what? That's going to be crazy, actually. So potentially a very strong AoE healer who's also going to dispel debuffs. She's going to potentially deal a decent amount of damage, but increase all healing by 50% as well. That's not just from this hero. It'll be from anybody healing during that time. We'll get the bonus. Defense up and battle skill boost, and obviously this crazy defensive boost from the passive, which is going to be 30% defense and 100 resistance. So considering this is a quote-unquote free hero, Ardreth is incredibly strong, and I cannot wait to give them a try. I definitely will be going for all of the events to get myself an Ardreth, because, I mean, it's a very interesting, very strong kit. So finally to Necrosis. So first of all, we've got Quaestitia. Wow, that looks awesome. So on the aura, we got 45% defense in Grand Gladiator Arena. Passive skill, when taking damage, there is a 25% chance of inflicting recharging speed penalty on the attacker for 5 seconds. The hero takes 30% less damage from basic attacks. The battle skill drags the farthest enemy towards the hero, inflicting necrotic damage with a chance of inflicting fear and knocked up for 3 seconds. Meanwhile, has a chance of inflicting healing prohibition for 5 seconds. Drags the farthest enemy towards the hero. I wonder if that goes all the way. That's almost like a grip on the furthest away enemy, whether that be a healer, damage dealer. That's going to be really fun to use in Arena, and potentially negating their tank by just gripping priority targets to the front every 12 seconds is going to be very interesting to see in use. On the ultimate skill, attacks the target area 3 times, each dealing necrotic damage to enemies within range and reducing their ultimate energy by 10% while granting the hero with healing. Third attack has a 100% chance of inflicting knocked up and 100% chance of placing an attack penalty. So Necrosis, I've said it in Season 1, Necrosis and Ice last season had very limited options for attack penalty. This is going to be really cool to see. Obviously, I know that Necrosis is now paired with Fire, but this is a really good tank with attack penalty, who's also got a load of control, a very interesting battle skill. So yeah, I'm really interested to see this tank in action, and more to the point, she looks incredibly cool. Right, next up we have got the last legendary for Season 2, and that is Dauk. So Dauk is another Necrosis defense-based hero. So we've got 65 accuracy in the Grand Gladiator arena battles. We've got attacks the enemy with the highest attack at the start of combat, dealing necrotic damage and marking that target to inflict it with 30 stacks of attack penalty. The target loses 1 stack of attack penalty every 1 second for the next 30 seconds. That's cool. So it's going to stagger the damage that the enemy's nuke is going to be able to do at the start. So it'll slowly reduce, and then obviously you'll need to take over with attack penalty. But it gives you time to get your bearings in the fight and rotate your cooldowns before you start to get demolished. So that's a really cool addition. The battle skill deals damage to the enemy with the highest attack and has a 75% chance of inflicting attack penalty 2 on them for 5 seconds. So even better, also providing attack penalty on the battle skill. And lastly, the hero gains accuracy bonus 2 for 10 seconds, then deals necrotic damage to the enemy with the highest HP, reducing their ultimate energy by 30%, with a 75% chance of inflicting Banished for 5 seconds. So Banished is a new debuff. The target will disappear temporarily from the battlefield, in which it can neither move or be selected. Once again, as I mentioned on the last hero, this sounds like it's going to completely remove tanks from arena effectively. You can remove the enemy's tank and just walk straight through to their backline. This could be countered by running multiple tanks, but either way, it's a really cool, different kind of ability to have. Nobody in the game has this otherwise, unless obviously somebody else has been added with it. But I think that's really cool. Dauk seems like a really good hero. Next up, we've got the epics. So if we look at Zrax, the first burn epic, when the hero and summoned units deal damage to enemies inflicted with burn, has a 75% chance of triggering blast once, dispels 1 stack of blast, and triggers AoE damage dealt by burn once. Battle skill deals fire damage to enemies within range and has a 75% chance of inflicting 1 stack of burn on them for 10 seconds. And invokes, so we know what burn does. It basically deals AoE damage around them. That's a cool battle skill. On the ultimate skill, summons a self-made turret at the target location for 20 seconds. The turret will attack enemies within range regularly. That could be really cool. Once again, obviously, all of these things will need to be tested. Just reading their skills on paper, they do sound quite cool, though. So, Arases. 24% crit damage in all battles. That's a good aura. When the hero deals damage to the enemy with the basic attack, there's a 30% chance of inflicting the enemy with 1 stack of burn. So this could be really good for enabling other burn teams if you can get a lot of stacks out. If we look here on the battle skill, grants a shield for 5 seconds. Good, because he's melee. And then deals damage to enemies around the hero every 0.8 seconds for 4 seconds. So this is quite cool because every time he deals damage with his basic attack. So I'm not sure if that will count. But there's a chance that he'll be applying a lot of burn debuffs through that. Deals damage to enemies within range. If the targets are under burn, dispels all burn from them. Every stack of burn dispel deals additional damage to them. So obviously each enemy can have up to 10 stacks of burn. So this could hit incredibly hard. If that's doing an extra 220% attack every stack on each enemy, you have the chance for a 2.2 thousand multiplier on an AoE hit without counting the 475% attack on the original hit. So I am definitely going to play around with this and see how high you can get that AoE damage. Next up, we've got Lyle. So Lyle has a 40 accuracy and aura in all battles. A passive skill for each enemy inflicted with burn on the field. The hero gains a stack of 5% attack up to 10 stacks, so gaining 50% attack on the passive. Casts a fireball that can bounce between enemies for up to 5 times, dealing damage upon hit with a 75% chance of inflicting 1 stack of burn. It will prioritize enemies that are not inflicted with burn. So looks like we've got our enabler for burn teams here. That is going to release a load of burn debuffs, potentially 5 every 10 seconds. It's a nice way of rotating it. As well as that, we've got here the ultimate skill. Deals damage to all enemies within range. It triggers blast on enemies inflicted with burn. So just kind of activating the burns again. Lyle looks interesting. Corrin reskinned. But in terms of his kit, he does look very interesting. So that's a nice one to have fun testing. Next up, we've got anybody in poison. Yes, this is a new support here. So Gelid, accuracy by 50 in City of Trial battles. The passive skill, basic attack, triggers Toxic Blast on the enemy, dealing poison damage to surrounding enemies within range with a 50% chance of inflicting accuracy penalty for 5 seconds. Interesting. The battle skill deals damage to the enemy, has a 75% chance of inflicting stun on them with a 100% chance of to knock back the target for 1 tile. Okay, that's new. So we can knock back 1 tile on the battle skill. It's just going to push the tank line back so we can get closer to the back line quicker in Arena, for example. Next up, we've got the ultimate skill, so it deals damage to enemies within range and has a 75% chance of inflicting stun on them for 5 seconds, with a 100% chance to knock back the target for 3 tiles. Yeah, this is going to jump the enemy tanks straight into their backline and allow our whole team to push forward and begin to take out some of these backline heroes easier. This is really cool. I can see this taking quite a lot of, having quite a lot of use in the arena. So we'll have to wait and see, obviously, for sure, to be sure. But yeah, this looks like a really good hero. That appears to be the only addition to Poison in terms of epics. Next up, we've got Thunderbolt. So we've got 2 new Thunderbolt epics. So Heirvolm first. When an enemy, the enemy's electrocuted is triggered, reduces the hero's current battle skill recharge time by 10 seconds, or 10%. This skill only takes effect every 3 seconds. So I mean, effectively, that's a 1 second reduction every time, every 3 seconds if electrocuted is triggered. So that's quite cool. I'm going to rotate through this quickly, which deals damage to enemies within range with a 40% chance of inflicting electrocuted for 8 seconds. Yeah, that's just going to do a small radius AoE damage with a chance of inflicting electrocuted, which will obviously be used more frequently with this passive. The ultimate skill, hero gains 20% attack up for 10 seconds, deals damage to enemies within range. If the enemies are under the effect of electrocuted, it deals an extra 450% lightning damage and triggers Thunderbolt once on them. This is really cool. This could do a good amount of damage. It's got a nice little frontal cone. The only issue I see here is this hero is melee. And melee is typically very hard to keep alive in majority of content. So I don't know if that's going to change at all in Season 2, but as it stands in Season 1, melee is not the most useful. So Heirvolm, I will test that out later. Next up, we've got Manda. So Manda is the next Thunderbolt hero. So a passive skill that the hero and the turrets will prioritize enemies that are not inflicted with electrocuted. In addition, each time the hero and turret successfully inflict electrocuted, each turret gains 1 stack of attack up to 10 stacks. How many turrets is she going to have? A newly created turret will inherit all attack up stacks previously gained. Okay, so this is going to be potentially good later on in the fight. I mean, that's 100% attack gained. So these turrets are going to eventually start spawning with 100% attack. Let's find out about these turrets then. So the battle skill summons a turret which occupies 1 tile on the battlefield and has a certain amount of HP with unlimited duration. It will attack enemies at regular intervals. There can be up to 2 turrets on the battlefield at the same time. When the turret number reaches the upper limit, the caster's skill to fully restore the HP for the turret with the lowest current HP. So that's cool. The only concern I have is, depending on how squishy these turrets are, they could die very easily if there's some AoE damage coming out. Next up, we've got the ultimate skill, Overclock. So grants attack speed up 2 and attack up to all turrets for 10 seconds. Chance of inflicting electrocuted by the turret's basic attack is increased to 40% within the next 10 seconds. So do we have the turret skills here? So yeah, turret's basic attack deals damage with a 20% chance of inflicting electrocuted. So that goes up to 40%. So Manda almost feels like a summoner. So she's going to be summoning turrets and then buffing the turrets to deal more damage. It's interesting, but it's going to be fun to see. So next up we've got Radiance. So in Radiance I don't expect to see any new damage dealers. It seems they've only added the new types, so if we look for... Nope, so there's no new Radiance epics coming to the game, so what we've got is what we've got to work with. In terms of ice, is there any Ice Blast epics? Yeah, there's 2, so maybe there's 3. So Girthin first. So attack by 30% in dungeon battles as an aura. If the hero has ice crystals after casting the battle skill, consumes 1 stack of the ice crystals and casts the skill again. Upon attaining ice crystals, the hero gains crit damage up for 5 seconds. Battle skill strikes an enemy twice, each dealing 290% cold damage. The hero then gains crit rate bonus for 5 seconds. Gains 1 stack of ice crystal immediately if the skill kills an enemy. So don't worry too much about that because this isn't going to kill an enemy very frequently. So with the crit rate bonus, it's a bit like Tolonen, where we only build with 80% crit rate because we're getting that extra 20% from the passive skill, from the battle skill, sorry. On the ultimate skill, jumps towards an enemy, dealing a large amount of cold damage and gaining 1 stack of ice crystal. So this is going to be quite cool for the arena. A Frost champion who can jump to the back. So yeah, that's relatively cool. Could deal a good amount of damage. I'll test that out. We'll have to wait and see. Next up, we've got Sadek. This guy looks cool. So on his passive skill, if he has Ice Crystal, casts a battle skill. After casting the battle skill, he casts it again, consuming 1 Ice Crystal. The hero's skill has a 50% chance of ignoring 30% of enemy defense. Battle skill strikes the enemy 3 times, each dealing cold damage, increases the damage of this skill by 10% each time this skill is cast in battle, and the effect stacks up to 10 times. So eventually this is going to do 100% extra damage. On his ultimate skill, he deals AoE cold damage to enemies within range with a 75% chance of gaining 1 stack of Ice Crystal. I'm curious to see how much damage this battle skill actually can do towards the end of a fight when you're gaining 100% of extra damage, especially in like kind of prolonged fights like Vortex. I think Ice Blast teams are going to be really strong for Vortex, especially with some of the new legendaries they've added. So last up for the Ice Blast epics, we've got Bledin. So he has a 24% max HP aura in all battles. His passive skill, once again, if he has Ice Crystal after casting his battle skill, it'll cast it again. And whenever his skill triggers a critical hit, there's a 20% chance of granting 1 stack of Ice Crystal to 1 Ice Blast ally. So he's going to be kind of your enabler for the rest of your Ice Blast heroes by the looks of it. So on his battle skill, he strikes the enemy twice, each dealing cold damage with an additional 20% chance of triggering a critical hit. So once again, we only build 80% crit rate here. On his ultimate skill, he grants 20% attack up and 2 stacks of Ice Crystals to the hero and the Ice Crystal ally with the highest attack, so the highest Ice Blast hit ally. Then strikes an enemy 3 times, each dealing cold damage with an additional 20% chance of triggering a critical hit. So yeah, as I said, this hero is going to be really good for enabling the rest of your Ice Blast team. He's going to obviously give 2 stacks to the highest attack on your team, so it just enables them to get multiple hits out of their battle skill. So next up we've got Necrosis. So we've got Cursor here. So on Curzor's passive skill, hero gains 15% ultimate energy whenever an ally is inflicted with a debuff. This can only take place once every 5 seconds. So realistically, in a situation where you're getting a lot of debuffs, this is going to rotate the ultimate skill very frequently. So we'll have a look at that in a second. The battle skill deals necrotic damage to enemies around the hero with a 75% chance of inflicting shield prohibition. So that's really good for dungeons where you don't want them to get shields. Also really good in arena against things like Philosias to stop them getting their shields out. On the ultimate skill, strikes an enemy 3 times, each dealing necrotic damage with a 50% chance of inflicting recharging speed penalty. Third attack has a 100% chance once upgraded to inflict attack penalty 2 for 10 seconds. So once again, this is a really good addition for Necrosis because their options for attack penalty are limited. Obviously this is from a support and it is only on a single target. but either way, that's a really good chance to, well, it's a 100% chance to inflict attack penalty for 2 seconds, so good against single target fights. But this is interesting, because if this does a lot of damage, so 900% necrotic damage, it's very, very high chance that this is going to be a really strong single target damage dealer if you're facing a lot of debuffs. So is that it for the epics? I believe it is, yes. So if we now move on to the rares, have we got any new rares? So we've got Beegs. Beegs is a burn rare. Every third basic attack has a 100% chance of inflicting 1 stack of burn on the target for 10 seconds. So that's really good. 1.82 second interval without any attack speed. So if you can ramp up this hero's attack speed, he'll be placing a lot of burns on the enemies. On his battle skill, selects an enemy and throws an incendiary at it, and its sides, dealing fire damage upon hit, with a 75% chance of inflicting 1 stack of burn on them for 10 seconds. So once again, just more burns. Strikes an enemy within range 5 times, each dealing fire damage with a 30% chance of inflicting 1 stack of burn on them for 10 seconds. So yeah, Beegs looks like he's going to trigger a lot of burn debuffs and obviously allow the rest of your team to do a huge amount of damage. Whether he does a lot of damage or not, we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, that's a cool little rare. Next up, we've got Percival, so another burn rare. 24% attack in City of Trials battles. Passive skill, hero skills deal 30% damage, 30% more damage to enemies inflicted with burn. The battle skill strikes an enemy 3 times each with a 75% chance of inflicting burn for 10 seconds. So with this stacking up to 10 times, every 10 seconds you're going to get 3 stacks from this battle skill alone. And on the ultimate skill, 20% attack up to all burn allies for 10 seconds, then attacks and deals fire damage within range. So this is quite cool, 20% attack up to all burn allies for 10 seconds. For a rare, this could be really useful, especially obviously at the start where we're limited to the amount of burn heroes we've got. This could help enable and kind of fill a spot in your team, while also boosting the rest of your team. So Percival could be quite fun. And now we've got Gloin, who is a support. So on his passive skill, grants a shield to the ally to an ally for 10 seconds when they're under control. This can only be triggered once every 10 seconds. His battle skill deals fire damage to enemies within range with a 75% chance of inflicting blind for 3 seconds, preventing them from using attacks, preventing their basic attacks from hitting their targets. And on the ultimate skill, launches 3 blasts of flame, each dealing fire damage to enemies within range with a 50% chance of dispelling 1 buff from them. So this could be really good for dungeons where you're dealing with a lot of buffs, like Grave of Curse, to help remove the buffs from the boss. So 50% chance, upgraded to 75% chance, hits 3 times. So realistically, you're going to be taking off hopefully 2 to 3 debuffs each time this is 2 to 3 buffs each time this skill is used. So Gloin could be really useful for some of the dungeons. Poisons, do we have any new rares? No new poison rares. Lightning, we've got... Yep, so we've got 2. We've got 1 Thunderbolt rare here. Is that it? Yep. So Ariaso. On his passive skill, for each enemy inflicted with electrocuted on the field, the hero gains a stack of 5% attack up to 10 stacks. So a potential of getting 10 for each enemy. So it's, yeah, I mean, realistically, there's not going to be a lot of opportunities to get 50% attack here, but in places like Goblin, it might be possible. So just a bit of extra attack here. On the battle skill, deals lightning damage to the target if they're inflicted with electrocuted, triggers Thunderbolt once on them. And the ultimate skill deals 660% attack to enemies within range with a 50% chance of inflicting electrocuted for 8 seconds. That upgrades to 75% chance. So a nice little rare. I'll have to test it out and see how effective it is. But yeah, once again, with having limited options to these new damage types, having some of these rares could be really useful just to finish off your team. Next up, Radiance. Do we have any new Radiance rares? No. So lastly, oh no, sorry, not lastly, we've got Necrosis as well. Ice Blast, we've got Nord. Is that the only one? Yeah, so Nord is the only Ice Blast rare being added. So Nord's passive is if the hero has Ice Crystal after casting a battle skill, cast it again by consuming 1 stack of Ice Crystal. When the hero deals damage, there is a 20% chance of granting 1 stack of Ice Crystal to the Ice Blast ally with the highest attack other than the hero. So this could be good to help enable the Ice Blast stacks on your team. The battle skill strikes an enemy twice, each dealing cold damage. And the ultimate deals 700% attack cold damage to enemies within range with a 100% chance of gaining 1 stack of Ice Crystal. So he's going to give himself his Ice Crystals, he's going to help boost the Ice Crystals on the ally with the highest attack, and he's just going to deal some damage. Unfortunately he is melee, so maybe we'll have limited use. So next up we've got Necrosis. Is there any new... No, so that is all of the new heroes coming to the game. There's 30 in total for Season 2. The only other thing I do want to call out here is a massive quality of life change. So if we go here to upgrade heroes, go to quick upgrade, and from level 1 we can take them straight to level 100, which is such a nice change, especially later on in the game where you're powering heroes straight up to level 100. It's going to make such a difference. So that is all of the new heroes, as I said, covered. I will obviously do some testing on these and put out some more videos over the next few days approaching Season 2, and obviously when Season 2's out as well on live servers. But thank you very much for watching the video today. If you are enjoying the content I'm putting out, please do remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.